Welcome to Empower Humans.
Welcome again to the Empower Humans podcast. This is a very, very special episode 100 of the podcast. We have hit triple digits, my friends, and thank you for sticking with me this whole time and with these episodes and our guests and everything that we've experienced up to this point. It's been a big learning experience in a lot of ways. It's been a really uplifting time for me and hopefully for you as well as we learn together and share together and, of course, interview some amazing people together. I want to remind you up front as we get into this amazing episode, you are absolutely priceless. You're never alone. I think we've said that in just about all of our episodes. Maybe we've missed one or two here or there with this 100 episodes now of the podcast. Just keep that in mind. That's a never-changing, permanent situation, a permanent state for all of us. No matter what you've gone through, what you've done, right or wrong with your life, you are priceless. Your worth exceeds all the riches and the nonsense of this world. The riches are found in you, and you're never alone, especially right now as we go through this virus situation. If you're listening to this in 2 years or 5 years or something, hopefully the podcast is still going. I believe it will be. But also, we're going through this coronavirus right now in the year 2020, and hopefully we get past this. I believe in all of us. I believe in our abilities and our united resilience as human beings that we can get through this together. As we move into this interview today, I want to say that we have a video version that's going to be up on YouTube as well, because this was a Zoom kind of video interview. Just like one or two previous Zoom interviews we've done recently, I've got to get a new webcam, I think, because the beginning, like the first minute or so, it's kind of not in sync. So it's kind of like a kung fu movie. So you can get some laughter out of that if you want to watch the video version. But after the first minute or so, I think everything synced up for the most part and was going just fine. There were a couple message beeps going on, I think, on her computer. So if you hear a beep that sounds like your devices in your home, that's probably not you. That's probably from the interview, but there's just a couple throughout the interview. And sometimes this goes on in Zoom. So in any case, great interview. We covered all kinds of ground with her. We covered her background, for one thing, and marriage, and she gave Grant a hard time. 13 plus months. I didn't realize all this, but she'll get into all that in the interview. Some interesting stories there and some of her background and how that fed into what went on between them. And it took a guy like Grant, I think, to win over Elena because of kind of some of where she was in life and what she thought about relationships and stuff. But fascinating people, very dynamic woman. We also got into some things related to parenting and business in general, words of encouragement with this coronavirus thing going on. A lot of general principles that relates to relationships and marriage and stuff as well. But keep in mind, Women in Power, the G&E show, 10X Lady, she has all these things going on. You can find it all at elenacardone.com and gear and all kinds of stuff as well. She's also a best-selling author and an amazing public speaker. Before we get into the interview, our challenges real fast. Study, keep studying. Our second challenge, make great moments. And of course, let's keep doing this podcast together. Without further ado, here is our interview with the one and only incredibly dynamic and fascinating Elena Cardone. Here we go. Okay, we're here with the, incredible author, businesswoman, public speaker, so many other things. Just all around inspirational woman, Elena Cardone. How you doing today, Elena?
Thank you. What a great introduction. I'm great.
Yeah, well, I almost need no introduction at this stage. I've been following you guys for a while and just real interested in, you guys fascinate me. Plus, you guys raise girls. I raise boys. So I think we compare some notes on that level a little bit as we talk today.
I'd love to compare notes. I mean, I don't know who has it harder. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably there's ups and downs on all sides of that. Pros and cons. But I grew up all boys, so I don't have a ton of the. We'll get into some of that. Tell me a little about your background, because you got into acting and things. But where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Madrid, Spain, as an American citizen on Spanish oil.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
My mom worked in the embassy over there. But I only lived there until I was 1, which is why I don't speak Spanish, because they only spoke Spanish when they were there as Americans, having to
really?
So that wasn't their first language. So when we moved back to the States, they didn't speak Spanish. They spoke English. So unfortunately, I missed out on growing up with hearing Spanish in the household. But then I was reared in New Orleans, Louisiana, and that was crazy. And unless you're from New Orleans, you probably won't even have a clue as to what I'm talking about, nor would you actually believe some of the stories that that I could tell you about that place, but it was wild. It was crazy. There's no character that you'll meet in the world like the ones you meet in New Orleans. And I love where I'm from. And then from there at 17, I moved out of New Orleans and went to Los Angeles to pursue the modeling acting career.
Yeah.
Really as an escape to get out of New Orleans.
Mm.
And found myself in Los Angeles for many, many years, I think 22 to be exact. And
Yeah.
then finally, after I married Grant and had both kids, we decided to move to Miami. And that turned out to be a very lucrative and beneficial move and transition for us and for the company. So
Yeah.
now I'm
Yeah.
in Miami.
Okay. And so are you an only child then? Is that
I have a sister who's 5 years older than me, and
oh, okay.
she lives in Oakland, California, and she has 2 kids.
Yeah, and I lived in LA myself for a little bit. I moved to Vegas, last year, so I'm up the road. But you're down in Miami as we speak, right? So is Grant with you now, or he's
Yeah. He's with me now. He's at the office a mile away. Um,
cool?
we were dividing and conquering, separated for 2 weeks. He did some self-enhancement type work. And Sabrina went along with them. So they just did a confidence course together, and they got to spend father-daughter time together. And then Scarlett and I held down the fort here. But fortunately,
Mm-hmm.
on Easter, we were able to reunite. And now, we have no plans to be apart. We're very happy to be together again.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad. And we'll get back to some of this stuff with your background, getting to know Grant and stuff. But how are you guys handling this coronavirus pandemic situation? Because everyone's kind of dealing a little differently, but most people are kind of locked down to some extent. How are you guys handling it?
Really well. Grant's done a number of webinars and really coaching people through this, giving them a plan of action on how to get through this, the exact steps they need to take. When there is a plan and you are prepared, it does tend to alleviate stress.
Mm-hmm.
Stress comes from worry, anxiety of the not know or the unknown. So, we've just been trying to figure out and look into the future at every case scenario and come back to present time and plan accordingly of what we want to look like on the other side of this, what we want the company to look like on the other side of this. And we're just working every single day, taking steps at what we can control in order
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to become what we want to be on the other side. We both experienced this in 2008, so I feel Grant and I have more of a leg up this time.
Yeah.
Certainly I'm prepared better this time. I know what we did. I know the successful actions we did last time that got us through, and we're going to re-implement that going forward. So we're doing pretty good.
Good.
It's stressful for everyone, no matter who you are. There's going to be moments of stress, but it can be mitigated when you
Yeah.
do a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen Grant in some of his, because I listen to some of your podcasts and stuff too, where he's talking about go back to where you have basically no money and and just
your mindset to go to zero. Yes.
yeah, and everyone's in a different situation. A lot of people have lost jobs and stuff, so it's a tough deal. I want to talk real quick about going back to this background thing, and maybe we'll get back to the pandemic stuff. But you went to LA at 17, which is a pretty young age. Was that a big change coming from New Orleans? I've never been to New Orleans. I'm a musician, so I'd love to go. A lot of great history there. But coming to LA, was it a big shift for you?
Not really. I was pretty wild at the time, from 14 to 17. I kind of went off the rails a little bit. I had an incident occur where my best friend who lived across the street perished in a fire, and I witnessed it, and it was very devastating for me. I didn't know how to deal with that and that loss or everything that encompassed that for a young child at 14.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just, my solution became to just kind of delve into the punk rock scene and self-medicate and consume excess amounts of alcohol. And then I hung out with that sort of crowd. So and I was partying in the streets of New Orleans from 14. I know it sounds unimaginable. From 14 to 17, I literally would be in the French Quarter and coming home at 7 o'clock in the morning. 7 o'clock in the morning. And
Wow.
so, I'd go out with my sunglasses and wear them home. So I was used to seeing a lot of very bizarre, wild things. And unfortunately, from 14 to 17, you hang out in that lifestyle, and then there's going to be more deaths. I had about 8 more friends pass away from suicide, 4 in a car accident, 1 fell off a balcony. Like, when you're running in rough crowds like that, when people are reckless with drugs and alcohol, there's going to be accidents. And so that was a time in my life. It was a wake-up call at 17 where I said, you know what, I can stay here and just use my best friend as an excuse to continue to ruin my life. Or I can go out of here and try to become something and make a difference and change my life. So when my parents at 17 and I sat them down and said, I'm moving to Los Angeles, and they said, what are you talking about? No, you're not. We're afraid you're going to get into drugs and alcohol and you're going to be peer pressured. And I said, here are the cold, hard facts. No one can peer pressure me because I've pretty much done it all. And the drugs that I've decided not to do, I've decided I'm never going to do. Cocaine is one of them. I've never done it.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that. But I can't really brag about a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So I just told him, I said, this is why I want to leave. I want to make a difference. I want to become better. I want to get myself out of this situation. I can't live in a house where every single day I walk in and out of my front door and I have to see that house every single day. I got to go. And so my parents, and I said, and I want your support. And so my parents did give me my support that I needed. And they trusted me. They've always trusted me. They didn't realize what I was doing when they trusted me, but they've always been my best friends, my biggest supporters and allies. And so when I made the decision to leave at 17, they completely backed me. And I was on the road. I never got perfect. I was, still dabbled in whatever, but for the most part, I got out of that environment. So so I wasn't afraid because I was wild. I mean, when you're that wild, like a move at 17 to Los Angeles by yourself really doesn't seem like that big of a deal.
Right.
When
Yeah.
I think about it now, as a mother of an 8 and a 10-year-old, I think, what the heck? Like, where did I get that strength? Where did I have that courage and the audacity? Now I've kind of reversed a little because I, have so much more responsibility and people to think about. And I think 17 is so young. I see my 10-year-old, I'm like, wow, in 7 years.
I know.
Yeah,
I think because I have 8 and 10-year-old boys myself, so we're kind of in a similar boat, but opposite gender. Boy, wow, what a history. I'm sorry to hear about all those losses, friends especially, and coming to LA, sounds like it wasn't a big shocker because you'd already kind of been through. New Orleans is a wild city.
New Orleans is a wild city. So, the guy, the guys that try to do their shtick or whatever, I mean, at 14, I was already able to see through all of that. I'm not saying I'm not naive, but I'm naive in a very different way. When it comes to street smart, I'm very you really can't pull a whole lot over me, but I am very naive. And I know this is my weakness. I'm very naive when it comes to people playing on my heartstrings, because I know that I want to help people. And so I have a tendency to believe in people and believe what they tell me and believe their sob story. So I know I'm naive like that. But when it comes to street smarts, from New Orleans, you gotta really have lived under a rock to not know what's going on.
So it sounds like you've always kind of been a strong girl and woman. Were guys kind of intimidated by you?
No, I never felt like guys were intimidated with me. I've always hung out with guys. I've always run with guys. So I've always been like one of the guys. And, you know, every now and then a guy in the group would like me or something. But for the most part, the guys really saw me as one of the guys. I was like the wing woman, you know, like they loved hanging out with me because I'm a wing woman, because I could say to a woman in a club or whatever, oh my God, I love your shirt or this or that. And then my guy friend could be talking to me and they're like, oh my God, this is my best friend, and hang on him and be like, oh my God, I love him so much. And then they're talking and then, you know, the rest is history. So guys loved having me around. I was like one of the guys to them. They were very protective of me, like a little sister.
Yeah.
And they've never felt intimidated by me because I've always kind of been a down home kind of girl.
Yeah. Well, and certainly Grant was, it sounds like, was never intimidated because you kind of put him through the ringer from what I understand. It's he was calling you for, what was it? You guys went on a date. Well, no, he met you at a commercial shoot, right? And then from there, what happened? Because he was real interested from day one. He thought, this is my wife, and you're thinking no.
Thinking, hell no.
Yeah.
No, I met him on a commercial shoot. I had lived in LA for a number of years at this point. And the director gave him my number, which is a huge no-no. You don't give somebody's number from the call sheet. It's just like, those are the Hollywood rules, and he broke them. The director gave it to him. He calls me. He's like, yeah, this is Grant Cardone, and you know, blah, 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 blah. And then he ends it with, you know, people that hang out with me, their lives tend to improve. And I was like, this is the all-time cheesiest line I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this guy's never getting another returned phone call, which he didn't. And then that's when he proceeded to call twice a month, every month for the next 13 months. In the answering machine days. So there was like an actual answering machine that But so I never returned any of his calls until finally he got smart enough to to play on my weakness, which is guns. I was a competitive shot shooter at the time. I shot sporting clay and trap. I'm horrible at skeet, but I used to be able to kill at sporting clay and trap. So he found that out from a friend of mine. He kind of got into the circle. He left a message, hey, I rented the shooting range. Do you want to shoot? Single girl, it's expensive. I used to shoot all the time. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, he wants to play that game? All right. So, you know, I went to the shooting range, totally just willing to just like, you know, exploit him and let him spend money on me. I know I was terrible. I was horrible, but I was like, okay, fine. But what ended up happening, I was like, wow, he's kind of a cool guy, but just as a friend. Anyway, long story short, he gets into the circle in my group after that. We become friends, like for real. But I knew he liked me. And he was like no man I have ever met before in my life, because I was determined never to let a man inside my heart. And I was Houdini of all Houdinis. I could wiggle my way and disappear out of any relationship, out of any circumstance. And I was professional. I mean, like, I hung out with dudes. I mean, I knew what to do. So, so Grant would just, you know, he was just constantly a stable person that would just not leave my life, no matter what gimmicks or tricks I tried to do to make him just like leave me alone. It never worked. He just saw through all of my BS. Nothing would work on him. He saw like into my soul. And that was the first time I was like, wow, I don't know why this guy likes me, but I think he really likes me. I don't even know what he's in me. I didn't even see me in me. I was too busy being so many other things, you know, at that time in my 20s. But it became attractive to me, that persistence and someone who really was interested in me. And I slowly, very slowly, I just kind of started to open up, and it became safe to allow someone to really go into my heartbeat that was so sealed off from all the losses and the people and the hurt and the deaths, and I had to be
Mm.
strong and not let all of that pain penetrate me. So I made so many decisions on never to feel love or to feel anything really.
Mm.
And he
Wow.
did break that down in me, and he's the only man that ever has. And he's he's been an incredible partner for me in the last 16 years, as challenging as it has
Yeah.
been at times. But like, I went from this having to be this really strong independent woman, never depend on a man, Hollywood, like I'm gonna do this thing on my own, to actually realizing the challenges that Grant has presented to me over the years and how I've had to adjust and rise to the occasion. And anyway, out of all of that, I've had the epiphany that I really found my true strength, power, and independence as a woman, ironically, came from a man. He never gave
Yeah.
it to me. He never gave it to me, but I found it through my experiences with him. And so, for that, I'm eternally grateful for
Mhm.
how he has shown up and impressed upon me my life.
Yeah. It sounds like, thank you for explaining and sharing all that. That's some deep stuff there. There's probably a couple therapy sessions in there too, but
No,
we'll address that later.
I don't do therapy.
You don't?
The record for that right now. I don't believe in it.
Really?
No. I don't believe.
Okay.
No, mm-mm.
Well, in the interest of time, we're not going to get into that topic. Maybe next time we'll talk about therapy, because people have different ideas about it. But it sounds like it took a guy like Grant, from what you're explaining about decisions you'd made about your heart and relationships, a tenacious go-getter guy like him to finally break you down, because you were talking well over a year and a lot of he wasn't like being a creeper, every day calling you 30 times. It was twice a month, he said.
And it
And
was
you
nice messages on the machine. I never felt threatened by them. I never even thought twice about them. But they were, I remember he would try to mix in some humor here and there. It was never anything I felt threatened or worried about.
Yeah. Well, he finally broke you down and convinced you, and it sounds like it's been a good thing. So I'm happy for you. You two have talked about that you had to work on yourselves in order to kind of be deserving or worthy of each other. Talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind. Is that something? Because, like you said, you don't believe in therapy. So what do we talk about with working on ourselves?
Well, this is an epiphany I had, and I can't really speak about Grant. I don't know what he did to work on himself before he met me. Has he talked about that?
Well, you guys addressed it in a couple interviews. I did some homework here.
Wow. Okay.
So, but not in a lot of depth.
I'm like, really? What did he do?
Well, I've been spying on you. No, I'm just kidding.
I know.
Go
I know.
ahead.
I went to a girls' night one time, and especially back then, I used to like really roll my eyes at that girl scene. Which now,
Mm-hmm.
like, I need women in my life more than ever, because I need
Sure.
that understanding, and they get me in a way that I never even knew a woman could understand me, and I need that. But back then, going back to my immature self in my 20s,
Mm-hmm.
I just thought girls did hokey things, and this was a classic example of one. I went to this girls' night, and they're lighting candles and all that stuff that just makes me want to puke. And they're lighting candles, and we had to write on a piece of paper everything that we wanted in a man. And I'm like, oh God, like nothing makes me more nauseous. But I was like, okay, I want to fit in. I always try to fit in. And so I write everything down on the little piece of paper, and then we had to twirl it up and stick it in copper and wear it around our necks. And I did until my neck turned green and it actually broke off. But
Yeah.
I wrote on the smallest little pieces of paper over 100 things on this list, and they're amazing. I put ethically ambitious. I mean, I wrote everything. My friend said, be clear. You have to be I put monogamous. I put heterosexual. I'm from New Orleans. Like, I've seen it all. So
Yeah.
I put like, never been married, doesn't have kids, loves his wife, loves his mom and sister. Sorry, not his wife. And anyway, I was just very clear on this list. But the cognition that I had after writing that list, and I felt like all the women there were like, yes, we deserve this and that. Well, when I looked at the list, I thought, you know what? If this man actually existed in real life, maybe I could be with one person for the rest of my life. Because in my 20s, I was never the type of girl who dreamed of a wedding day or even wanted to have kids. I was like a dude. I was like, I'm going to be single forever and be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought if I saw this list and that guy existed, I could be with him for the rest of my life, maybe. And then I looked at the list and I said, well, if this guy existed, what would his list look like from his point of view of the girl he would be with?
Wow.
So I wrote a list of what he would write from his point of view. And that's when I realized I was never going to show up in that guy's radar, because I was not a lot of the things I was on the list, but there was a lot of things I wasn't on the list. One of them, which is like wanting to be in a marriage, a committed marriage, wanting to have kids and wanting to, have, a lot of the things I just wasn't there mentally in my thinking. And, I was going to clubs at the time and drinking, and that guy would not want that from this woman. And so that's when I decided, you know what, even if this doesn't pan out, even if I'm not doing this for a guy, like I took a look at myself and looked at how I can improve myself. So I started to clean up again. I was never an alcoholic. I was never a drug addict. Fortunately, I don't know why, but I recreational, slam some whiskeys. I mean, this girl's from New Orleans. We know how to rock and roll. So, I just started hanging out with a different group of people. I gave up alcohol. I stopped hanging out in the clubs as much. I just started really working on myself. I started reading books. I started to figure out how to take self-improvement classes. I just started working more on my craft as an actress. So I started doing, that's what I mean by started to self-enhance and working on myself. And ironically, I met Grant almost immediately after I did that list, but I couldn't see him because I wasn't there yet.
Wow, what a great perspective, though. And maybe some food for thought for all of us in or out of a relationship to be our best. It's kind of a two-way street, two-sided coin, and you got to take care of you and, be worthy of each other and stuff. But in the interest of time, I want to quickly talk about parenting too, because you got these two girls, 8 and 10, and I've got my two boys, 8 and 10. How is it raising girls? I grew up all boys, and I have 2 boys now. So let's compare some notes.
It's challenging being a mother,
Let's doing all the other things you do.
Yeah, it's so, I struggle. I try so hard to be patient, and I'm learning, but I have to change my whole way of life, which is different than I see Grant having to change because how do I explain it all? It's because I'm the mother, I have to adjust my life. If we want to go somewhere, I have to figure out, well, who can stay and watch the kids, or who's going to do that, whereas he can just take off and go. Yes, but let me finish this first.
Speaking of being a mom.
Not now. When I'm done, I'll talk to you. Okay. So I just, so many of my life, the way I was not as a single, but as a single or as a married woman, so much of that had to change when kids came into the picture. And I'm dealing with their personalities now that they're 8 and 10, and sensitivity, and was I too hard or this or that? And I just want to do it right. And I just want to be loving, but yet I have to lay down the rules, and give them as much freedom to be themselves and be self-determined over their decisions and their choices, but within a parameter. And I also let them know that if they cross the parameter, that is a choice, and they can make that choice. And I'm not going to get mad at them. I try very hard not to get mad at them for making the choice, but they do have to understand that when they cross that line, these are the consequences. And then I have to be strong enough to implement that. And, like just recently I had to take Sabrina's phone away because there was some agreements made with the phone, and she told me that I thought the situation was handled. And then I caught her and it wasn't handled. So I've taken the phone away like permanently. So, and I know that's a big source of upset for her, and that I have to be the bad guy on that. But but that's something I have to do. So it's tricky being a parent, because you're constantly, you haven't gone enough into the future to look back and say, oh, I wish I would have done that differently, or this differently.
Yeah.
That didn't really matter, and this did matter, and I should have done more of this. And I do try to play those scenarios, because I told you in the beginning, I do try to put myself into the future and kind of plan for every scenario, then come into present and figure out what I'm going to do to look like on the other side. So I have done a little bit of that, where I try to go 10 years further and come back and figure out what's really important. But it's not easy, because that's all hypothetical.
Yeah.
So, but it is a rewarding experience. My children are extremely kind, loving. They're in exchange with the family. They're always on Team Cardone. They're pitching in, they're helping out, they're shooting videos, they're passing out flags on the world tour. They're not, giving us so many problems where we have to come off of our work and worry about them. They're incredible children. And, yes, they have their little fights between each other every now and then, but my gosh, I think back when my sister and I fought, I mean, we were we were drawing blood. They don't do that. Like, they don't even hit each other. It's just, but still,
Yeah, no, I know, because I was that way with my brothers too. It's
you were violent.
And then you look back and realize, boy, now that I'm a parent, there's a whole different kind of perspective, because you're looking at it from that angle and all the worry and stuff.
I mean, I feel like our parents didn't even know half of it, because we were out in the neighborhood running wild until dark. They didn't know we were killing each other, beating each other up, and
no iPads and so many video games and stuff as now. So it's a different world. But boy, who are some of your heroes? As we get close to wrap up here, I like to ask someone like you something like that. Do you have heroes? Because you're an actress, but also you do these other things business-wise and stuff. Who are some of your heroes, if you have any?
I certainly look up to Grant. He's a hero of mine. I'm his biggest fan. But I love Audrey Hepburn. I think she was an amazing actress. She was classy. She was dignified. She was philanthropic. She never lost her way in that Hollywood scene. She was, she really broke some glass ceilings for women. I just really admire her. That's one person I really kind of look up to. But there was a lot of them, especially in that era. And I'm looking at actresses right now, but I loved Audrey Hepburn and her audacity and boldness.
Sure.
I can look at a lot of people and find qualities that really impress me and then I want to emulate, but certainly not all of everyone's story. Like Katharine Hepburn, I didn't like that she was having an affair with Spencer Tracy, who was a married man, but there's parts of me that can see certain sides, and I can do that with many different people. And, certainly like the major leaders like Martin Luther King and, his power and his ability to influence the behavior of others and to be peaceful and calm, but yet be so strong and powerful and, really guide people. Like, there's just so many people. I could go down a huge list that I admire for their courage. If we're on that road, like Rosa Parks, can you imagine what courage that took to do what she did to get attention? And, there's nothing, like, you could just go on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
I'm moved by people that want to make a difference for the better in this world, that have the courage to go after it and to try it in spite of personal harm or danger. And those are the people that I admire and I look up to, and I want to be courageous enough to do what they did.
Well, I think you're probably a hero to a lot of people too. But boy, we've touched on a lot of stuff that we're gonna have to do a sequel. Now we got to dig deeper in all these little areas, from the acting to the parenting but we've touched the tip of the iceberg and got some fascinating additional details. And I appreciate you spending some time with us here. Is there anything else you want to add? Any words of encouragement as people are going through this pandemic, or any other tips parenting wise or anything as we wrap up here?
Yeah, just encouraging words through this pandemic is, don't make any decisions. Don't divorce your spouse. Don't make any really hardcore decisions that you may later regret. Just understand people are experiencing stress right now, chronic stress of long duration by being put under pressure of, the not knowingness of what is going on. Be kind to people. If you are of the responsibility level where you're willing to own who you are and your power, then make a decision to be the beacon of inspiration, be the person that others can depend on, be the calm, be the power. The power is, what is power? It's the ability or capacity to influence the behavior of others. So when others are going wild and crazy and off the rails, can you just exhibit a little bit of power and get them back on the right track and influence them to go in a better direction? And if you just did that for one person, you could really help change the world. So this is a time where the world needs a little bit of healing right now, and anything you can do to own up to the responsibility that you have in that participation of helping with the healing process, of helping everyone get stronger, bigger, and more unstoppable on the other side of this. How can you dig in and find the opportunity, make the opportunity, create the opportunity to become your best self, not only for yourself, but for your family, for the community, and for the world.
Yeah, great advice, great insights, and thank you for opening up to us. So Women in Power, the G&E show, 10X ladies, we got gear on ElenaCardone.com, all kinds of great stuff out there. And of course, we can find you on social media at Elena Cardone.
Yep, and I have a free book if you're doing some reading at this time. It's ElenaCardone.com/empire. The book is free if you want to read that. Of course, I think it's a good read right about now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, great. Thanks for the time. Let's do a sequel one of these days. And for our audience, empower yourself, empower the world around you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Empower Humans. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review this podcast. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit empowerhumans.com. We'll catch you next time.